Hello and welcome to show number 88, the weekend edition of the 1420 Sports Podcast, for beer with a sports talk and a whole lot more. Brought to you by Bud Light, the beer that never fills you up and will never let you down. I am your host, Brent Radlinski, recording from the basement studios of Yankee Tavern North in beautiful and blustery Lethbridge, Alberta. Joe Musgrove pitched the first no-hitter in San Diego Padres history last night, and the producer and I were high-fiving when it happened. I'll talk about the beauty of baseball and why I still think it's the best game in the world. Pre-game rituals aren't only for players, but are for fans as well. I'll let you know my pre-game ritual when I'm in the Bronx and how it came to be. COVID's still a thing throughout the world, folks, and it doesn't seem to be going away, and it's ripping through the sports world as well. I'll give you my unpopular opinion, that's hard to say, about what I think we should do and why. It's Wrestlemania weekend, so to wrap up today's show, I'll give you my top 5 Wrestlemania matches of all time. We're locked down again here in Alberta and can't really go anywhere, so let's get through this together. Sit back, be entertained, grab a few beers, and let's get into her. So let's get going here. It's Saturday. Lockdown number 3 we're on now, I guess it is, and can't go anywhere, can't do anything. Things aren't progressing like we hope. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But one good thing came of last night's lockdown. Usually the producer and I would be out for dinner or out for a couple of adult beverages on a Friday night just to wrap up the work week. But we're at home last night doing what everybody else was doing, having a couple of adult beverages, I guess, and listening to some music. And then the got to give Apple credit on this one. And the MLB app, even though I tend to knock on them quite a bit lately for their choices of how they've handled the Apple TV and the way they control the app. But anyways, sitting around, like I said, having a couple of drinks, and out of nowhere, a notification comes up from MLB that there's a no-hitter alert, as they do. It was the Padres-Rangers game last night, and well, why not? So we turned it on, and I do it every time. Every single time a no-hitter alert comes on, I tune to the game. More often than not, I don't even get it to the game before the no-hitter is broken up. But last night, made it through, logged on, streamed, however you do it for the older Apple TVs. But anyways, Joe Musgrove, San Diego native, was in the 7th inning. Perfect game, or not perfect game, no-hitter in the 7th. You start cheering for it, and you become a fan of that team pretty much instantly. And you start hoping, and they start talking about it, and you see the notifications on other things. No hitter alert. We got on Twitter for the 1420 podcast Twitter account to let other people know. We got some retweets and this and that, so people started following it. It's pretty exciting to watch. Got through the 7th, got through the 8th. They showed a whole bunch of clips of Musgrove in the dugout, and he got it. He got the no-hitter, and it was fantastic. He faced 28 batters. He hit a guy in I think it was the 4th or 5th inning yesterday. So only one guy got on. Otherwise, it would have been a perfect game. And it's fun to watch. It's such a joy to watch. And it brings you back to why you like baseball so much. And just how fantastic it is. It's a great story. Musgrove, it was his only no-hitter in baseball that he can recall, even throughout Little League and everything else. You think a guy pitching the big leagues probably get a no-hitter or two. He says it was the only one he ever got. It's such a joy to watch. The producer and I were high-fiving each other, and it brings it back why you like baseball so much. I mean, you bellyache about the rule changes, or I guess I do. Everybody does. I bellyache about the rule changes and the guy on second base. The Yankees stink right now. They can't hit. The Mets, I feel bad for the Mets. DeGrom struck out, I think, 14 today and still lost 2-0 or whatever the score was. But it's moments like last night watching Musgrove get the no-hitter and the first one in Padres history, and the stupid things that you remember last night when it was in the 8th inning. And it came to my mind for some unknown reason. I'm a baseball dork, that's why. But it came to my mind that the Padres had not had a no-hitter. They're the only team in baseball who had yet to have a no-hitter in their entire franchise history. I think 50 years they've been around, 50-some years. Was 808,206 regular season games with without a no-hitter. And then he got one, hometown kid. His high school was only 13 miles from Petco Park, which if you ever get to go to Petco. It's fantastic, fantastic facility, built right into the downtown area, the Gaslamp District. I think I've talked about before on the 1420 podcast, but it's a great spot. They were in Texas last night and whatever. There was a lot of Padres fans in the stands who were witnessing the first no-hitter in franchise history, and you could see the joy in their face. And it got me thinking about going to baseball games and the way I grew up with the game. And it got me thinking, like, you see the joy in these people's faces, and the joy I used to get going to games when we were allowed to go to games back 2 years ago now for us Canadians. Americans, they get to go to games, and things are a little bit different down there, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But it's such a fantastic sport, and I love it to death, even though it's changed immensely from when I was a kid watching games and how it's different. You bellyache all you want. It's still a great game. It's so fantastic, and it got me thinking back, and we're coming up on the 1 year since Dad passed away, and it got a guy thinking about last night, and I don't even know why, about playing catch with my dad for the first time in our front yard in Fort McLeod there in the homeland. And then when you start playing t-ball and you don't know what you're doing, but you think you're a big leaguer and you think you're a pretty big deal, and just just how everybody can play this game. And it's such a heartwarming thing last night to see that with all the craziness going on in the world right now. And they were just kids out there playing last night, and how it was just so fun to watch. Baseball is, to me, it's just different, and I can't really put to words for some reason, which is bad for a podcast. You can't put something to words, but just how everybody has played the game, whether it be Little League, T-ball, high school, American Legion. Then you go on, and we most of us don't have the chance to play professionally or in college or whatever it is, and how it just, everybody's made that play, and everybody's had the chance to make that play. It's whether it's a diving grab or a home run, or pitch get close to a no-hitter, or striking a bunch of guys out or whatever. We were talking about it last night a little bit, and Deanne was saying how she a diving catch that she made, and I was talking about when I played high school at Notre Dame and struck out 12 or 15 or whatever it was, and just the memories that you get. And that's what I got last night for some reason, watching that the Padres game. It's such a slow-moving sport where you get a chance to think about these things while it's going on, and you can reminisce and you can talk about things and you laugh about things. There was a time get into this a little bit later on too, but me and my brother were in the Bronx going to a Yankees game. We're sitting in the Legends Suite, and the guy behind us, he was from Staten Island, I think it was, and he was telling us about the softball game he played the night before, how he had some choice words for the umpire, and he cared so much about what happened in his softball game. He wanted to talk to us about it. It was, at first we were a bit not annoyed, but like, dude, we don't care. But then his story was so great, we were more enthralled with the story the guy was telling behind us, that we kind of were missing out in the game in front of us. And that's what baseball does for me. And I don't think I'm the only one that it has that effect on. You go back to 2016 World Series with the Cubs finally getting one, and the pure elation in that city, and the videos that you've watched, and people sitting with listening to the game with the radio on with their dad who had passed away. They're sitting at a gravesite, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just being a little sentimental for some reason. But because, like I said, because Dad passed away a year ago, be Wednesday, I guess. You get a little sentimental about these kind of things, but baseball has it that other sports don't. The traditions that baseball has compared to hockey and football, basketball, maybe it's just me, but I just find it so fantastic, the way that they can do that. And for the Padres fans who were in the stands that last night in Arlington, watching that game, you could see the emotion in their eyes. There was tears in people's faces. Like, being a Padres fan's got to be tough. They haven't had a whole bunch of success. They were in the World Series, and as another Yankee win. It was '98, I believe. I could be wrong. Tino Martinez hit a grand slam, ripped the hearts out of Padres fans' hearts. But they have a shot this year, and they can do some things. It was great to see Musgrove get that no hitter last night, and it's such a great. It was so great to watch, and I hope that I'm not being a little too sentimental, but get back to me what you think about baseball and how it's different from other sports, because it's just something different about baseball, that everybody has a chance to do it, and everybody has a play, whether it be, like I said, in Little League, they made a diving catch or a great game or a hit. And the elation that growing up where I did in Fort McLeod, the Little League park across the field, like I've told you guys, there was 2 Little League parks across there. And when a kid would make a play, you knew he wasn't very good, but he would catch a fly ball. And the surprise in his face when he caught the ball, which he's supposed to do, and the joy that a parent would have for that, it's quite fantastic. And baseball does that a lot more than other sports does, because everybody has a chance to play. And to me, it was great. And watching that no hitter last night, for a kid who grew up a Padres fan, and he did it in front of did it for his hometown team, pretty amazing to see. And a kid don't get a chance that often. And when you make the big leagues and you get a chance to play for your hometown team, it's got to be quite the feeling. Another thing that I don't know if I brought it up in the podcast before, but as soon as I was watching that last night, I got reminiscing about old baseball memories, and I'll talk about a little bit later on the show, going to the Bronx. But there's this one particular time I was sitting in section 103, which I've been sitting there quite a bit lately when I get a chance to go out there. But Carlos Beltran threw a ball in the stands from warm-ups, and I reached up and I caught it, and I gave it to the kid next to me. The kid next to me looked at it, whatever, I got a ball. She didn't really care. Went and got it back to my friend Matt Muldoon, who's been on the show with us a couple times. And I came back, and as I was going back to my seat, the mom, she gave me the baseball back. And she said, "This ball means a lot more to you than that does to my daughter." So she gave me the ball back, and it was pretty fantastic. And baseball does that, and you see that on a nightly basis. And it's such a great game. And I get why people don't like it. And there's rule changes that are happening now that are a little bit tough to watch, the baseball purist that I am. But at its core and at its roots, baseball is still the greatest game in the world to me. And it brings people together a lot more than other sports do. There isn't a hatred and a disdain and the violence that football has, and the violence and everything that hockey has. There's just something about that sport, and I can't pinpoint it. I wish I could. I hope I kind of got it a little bit for you guys listening out there. Anyways, I'll quit being a crybaby here about baseball, but it's so great to me. Anyways, we passed the 8,000 mark yesterday on the 1420 podcast for downloads and listens and all that stuff. We talk about it a lot. It means a lot to me that you guys tune in to me and Dave throughout the week, and then during the weekend I get on here and I ramble a little bit. We got some things coming up in the next couple of weeks, little production changes that Jim's working on behind the scenes. Thank you very much once again, Jim. T-shirts are for sale, hats are for sale. We got those 3/4 length tees are in production now. So thank you very much, J7 Designs out in Medicine Hat, taking care of that for us. Thank you guys for supporting the show by wearing hats, wearing T-shirts, and getting the good word of the 1420 podcast out there. We really appreciate it. Yankees, I hope you guys start getting better, because it hurts to watch. And as Yogi Berra said, it can get late early. You start losing games, and you're 3-5 all of a sudden you can be 3-10, and it might be too late. So it can get, like Yogi said, it can get late early. Listen to 1420 podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and we're everywhere. Make sure you guys listen to the show. Talk to people about it, because we really appreciate all the support you guys given us thus far. So back in September 2013, I made the plunge and decided to go to New York City to watch the Yankees for the first time. And I went in blind, didn't know really where I was going, what I was doing. I didn't Google anything. I didn't do any research. Didn't really ask around what was appropriate, where I should stay, where I should go. I hit Expedia, hit a few buttons and the old credit card was charged. The next thing you know, I was on my way to New York City. Didn't have a clue. it was looking back, I want to say I blew it because the experiences that I had in the Bronx were fantastic. But looking back, I probably should have done things a little bit differently. But I'm glad that I didn't. Anyways, had a midnight flight out of Calgary, landed in Toronto, then went down to New York. I got to New York City at about, I don't know, 10:30 in the morning. I had a ballpark tour booked for Yankee Stadium for, I think it was 1:30. Um, didn't know what I was doing, where I was going, and it turned out to be a life-changing experience, to say the least. That day, I made some friends that I still have to this day in the Bronx. That turned out great. Got off the airplane anyways. Was at LaGuardia, looking to find out the quickest way to get to the Bronx, because I had that, like I said, I had that tour of the stadium at 1:30. Asked the people at the front at the airport, the greeters or whoever. I said, they said, just take a cab. It's the quickest, easiest way. Yeah, it's a little more expendy, but yeah, it wasn't transferring buses and subways and everything else. And so that's what I did. I got in a cab, told the cab, he sat in the back, threw my suitcase in the back in the trunk, said, take me to Yankee Stadium, please. And he knew I was, obviously it was a first timer, so he was telling me what what I should expect and everything else. But anyways, got there, and he was sick of listening to me, and so he just basically stopped right in the middle of the street, 161st and River there, right at Yankee Stadium, and got out, got my bag, had a big old suitcase. Knew I was going to be bringing a lot of souvenirs back, which I did. I got a little bit funny story coming back, but anyways, I'm smiling a lot talking about this story. I might put this up on YouTube later on, because it's it brings a smile to my eye, a smile on my face, and a joy to my heart in these tough times. But anyways, went for a little stroll, saw this place, Yankee Tavern. And I thought, well, what better place to start my trip than at the Yankee Tavern? I rolled in there, and it's a neighborhood bar, and to say the least, it's gritty. But right then, I was hooked. This place had Yankee fans. It was a game day there. I forgot to tell you guys, it was a Yankee Red Sox weekend. And so the Yankees weren't very good in 2013. They weren't challenging for any championships by any means. But anyways, I roll in, and it's early in the morning, or well, 10:30, whatever it was. There were some locals having bars. It's a neighborhood pub, like I said. There's a courthouse not too far from the Yankee Tavern. That there's lawyers and all kinds of professionals that were inside there having breakfast and some drinks and whatever it was, plus the local people. Sat down, and there's this bartender, John. I'll never forget him, and the how great he was right off the bat. I asked for a Bud Light, put one down in front of me. We started talking, and then as we got to chatting, he noticed he found out I was from Canada. Brought over Tony, the bartender, and the rest is history. Tony told me some stories about he grew up not too far from Manitoba, played hockey, and I said, oh, Manitoba, and I brought up my cousin that played for Leafs, Bill Derlego, and he knew Bill, knew his stats and everything else. They played hockey against each other back in the minor hockey back in the 70s, and he was telling me, so it was kind of a coincidence, was kind of a neat story. And to this day, whenever I go back to the Bronx, Tony, he comes and shakes my hands, gives me a hug a time or two, and he calls me his favorite Canuck. And anyways, Tony's fantastic. Anyways, John got me a beer, and we had a few laughs and talking about things. And he said, come, beers were, I don't know, $5 a piece. And he said, before game time, about 2 hours before the game, they jacked the prices up, a tourist spot, of course they would, to about $8. But as long as I went to John, he'd keep me $5. And so I gave him a pretty good tip, and everything else and the rest later on. Beers were $5, and they are to this day every time I go there. He keeps the price the same. JC's the same way. Fantastic guy. I sit down. No matter, I went with the producer once, and my brother, my sister, and then my brother, like with different combinations. We went down, and every time we go, I sit down. They recognize me, and it brings a smile on my face and a tear in my eye every time, because I don't even got to ask anymore. It's like I was there last week, and they put a Bud Light in front of me, like I've been there before, obviously, and they know what I want, and they give it to me every time, and it's makes a guy smile quite a bit. And my brother's kind of getting that kind of a thing. And the prices don't change very much when JC's serving us. We could have 5 beers or 10 beers, and for some reason it's always about $26.50 for some reason. I don't know how that works, but it always works out for us. So we tip them pretty good and everything else. But anyways, so later on I traveled down to went walking down the street. I had this suitcase with me, and I didn't know what to do with this damn thing. And I saw this sign in front of Home Team Sports, or Home Play Sports, whatever it was called. And it was a Yankee souvenirs, jerseys and T-shirts and hats and all the rest. And they said there was a sign that said leave bag storage. So I walk in, and there's this crotchety old fella sitting there. And I said, hey, can you guys keep my bag for a couple hours? I can't check into my hotel. I'm going for the tour. Yeah, $10. $10. Okay, sure, whatever. So he keeps my bag and smiles, laughs. I give him $10 cash, and he mumbled something under his breath, and I walked away and went the tour, which is fantastic. If you ever get a chance to go to any tour, I go every stadium I go to, I go on the tour. But make sure if you get a chance to go to Yankee Stadium, go on the tour. It's $25, whatever it is. You go to Monument Park, you go to the museum, you go into the dugout. It's fantastic. It's well worth the $25. You see things you never, and you hear stories, and you hear other people's stories. The people who are on the tour with you, and they talk about their favorite Yankee memories, or the first time they went to the stadium and everything else, and the old places across the street. And when you're up in the museum, you can look out the window and you can see the old stadium, the grounds that me and my brother had a chance to play catch on. It's fantastic. Anyways, after I left the tour, went for a little bit of a walk. I couldn't check into my hotel till 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So I thought, well, let's go have another beer somewhere. So I went down the street and I heard about this place, Stan's. Stan's is a game day ritual like no other. That's a good time, to say the least. The music is always loud. The people are always having a good time, and it's right near the subway stop. So it's always full of people, full of Yankee fans. The odd Red Sox fan was in there that day as well. Anyways, it was 3 in the afternoon, so it wasn't too busy. So I got the feel of the land a little bit, and it was pretty great. Got my bag. I was staying in the Bronx, which was strange that I stayed in the Bronx. I didn't know what I was doing. That Manhattan and the subway station was so close and everything else. So I stayed the Days Inn. It's about a 10 to 15 minute walk. Depends what time of day it is. You might walk a little bit faster. It's in a pretty shady area. Not recommending against it, but if you're going to a Yankee game, stay in Manhattan. It's the D train, quick, easy. They drop you off right there. But staying in the Bronx was it was quite the experience, to say the least. The Days Inn, I think it was $80 or something. There's a reason. Not a horrible place. I've stayed in way worse places than the Days Inn in the Bronx, but it was definitely an experience, to say the least, walking back and forth. Anyways, my pregame ritual now, when I go, I started at the tavern, have a couple of beers there, then we walk over to Stan's, go to Billy's usually for one. Billy's is more of a nightclub kind of an atmosphere. Go back to Stan, or to the tavern, one more. Then me and my brother found this little hidden gem. It's not hidden, but a pregame ritual we started now to easy access to the stadium. We go into the Hard Rock that's attached to the Yankee Stadium now. It's right there. You have a couple of beers in there, and you can enter the stadium right from the Hard Rock to avoid the lineups. So you can have a beer while you're in line, then they'll pour it into a cup for you, and you get to go get to go into the game. It's quite easy to get in. The security's a lot quicker and easier. So that's my little tip for people going to Yankee games. Go to the Hard Rock, have a couple of beers, then you get in the stadium nice and easy. There's nothing quite like, I know I'm kind of reminiscing about Yankee things a lot today, but there's something about it that I miss. I hope one day I can get back there, because it's been I haven't been since 2019 when I went with my sister and my brother. I had a good 7-year run of going every year, and maybe I'll put this up on YouTube. I'm wearing I started another tradition. Every year I go, I buy a Yankee hat, and I'm wearing my 2013 hat today, and in honor of the story I'm telling you guys. Go just people have their stories of where they go before games, whatever stadium they go to. Like when you go to Sky Dome, Gretzky's was a thing. I used to go there all the time. Gretzky's is closed down now, but there's so many great bars and so many great stories that that happen around every field. That it's just it's part of the game day experience. Like I said before on the 1420 podcast, you talk a lot about going to games. A game's a game. It's the before and after that you remember. Another quick little story here. 2015, I was fortunate enough to be down in the Bronx again for my birthday, and got into her a little bit, to say the least. And maybe I had a couple too many. Went to stands after the game, and yeah, I was a little impaired, to say the least. And the next day, before the Sunday game, the bartender at stands, he goes, "Hey, how you feeling?" I was like, "Oh, I'm good, man." He goes, "Yeah, I remember you from last night." He goes, "Ooh, tough one, eh?" I was like, "Yeah, a little bit." So I must have been a little under the weather for sure, because he for the amount of people that go through stands on a game day, for him to remember me, I must have been doing something memorable. Anyways, no harm, no foul. It's all part of it. After a game, here's my advice to you before you get in the subway to go back to Manhattan or wherever you're going. There's a restaurant across the street from the Yankee Tavern. It's called U.S. Chicken. They have these gyros there that are to die for. I think they're like 2 for $8 or something. They are so good. It might be because of the booze you had before, during, and after the game, but these gyros, 2 will get you back to Manhattan, and they're filling. And once you get to Manhattan, it's a great time. But those things will tide you over for sure. Not a regret any time I've went to New York. A lot of good times. Staying in the Bronx was an experience, but I'm glad I found this new place. It's called the Manhattan in Times Square, about a block from the subway stop. And the people there have been fantastic to me and my brother and my sister and the producer over the years. Can't wait to get back. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Vaccines are rolling out here in Canada. Not as quick as we hope. My mom's getting hers on Tuesday, her first Moderna shot, I believe it is. So then she'll be well on her way, and hopefully I can get mine, and we can get rolling here. I hope to take like my brother's getting married in the near future here, so hope that his girlfriend's going to come down with us to the Bronx, and the tradition can continue once we're allowed to go. We'll stop at the tavern. Hopefully John and JC and the boys and Tony are still working there, because I miss you guys a lot. Anybody who gets to go, let them know I'm thinking about them and I miss them a lot, because they become friends of mine, and I really appreciate all that the smiles they brought to me and my family's face over the last few years, because there's nothing quite like going to the tavern before a game. I've said it before, one of my favorite Yankee Stadium memories is when I wasn't even in the stadium. I was in the tavern, and it was raining like a bastard, so I left about the 8th inning, and Mark Teixeira hit a home run, and I said right before he did, I said, "Hey John, if Tex rolls into one here, the Yankees got this." And sure as shit, Tex hit a home run, and New York came on the jukebox, and high fives and hugs and beers were thrown and everything else. It was quite the moment that me and John shared. So if you get a chance to go, say hi to John, say hi to Tony, say hi to JC at the tavern, because they'll appreciate it, and hopefully they remember me as much as I remember them. I didn't really want to do this in the 1420 podcast. This isn't really the reason why I got into this. It's not at all something that I know how to go about doing. So I'm just going to spitball and talk from my heart, I guess. It's been a tough year, to say the least, with the passing of my father on April 14th of last year, and then COVID and everything else, and how it's affected the world, not just mentally, financially, everything else. It's been tough. And then the infighting that's happened throughout the world, and the difference of opinions, and that's what they all are, their opinions. And on both sides, every time someone says both sides, it's a tough thing. And I'm trying to make light of it a little bit, but it's been a tough year, to say the least. And it doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. We went into lockdown here in Alberta. Not a complete lockdown. There's still things that are open and everything else. I get it. But I'm using the word lockdown to make it very easy. We got to get our crap together, Albertans. Whether you believe it or not, and whether it is a thing or not, there's restrictions put in place because somebody thinks there should be. Whether it's a movement for the Great Reset or whatever it is, we got to get our crap together. It's been tough. Let's wrap it up into the sports world a little bit. There's a hockey team in Vancouver that can't play right now. There's people that are sick. And from what I've read and what I've heard, there's some guys that are really sick. There's family members of those players that are really sick. And it's not pretty. There's hockey teams here in Alberta. The Calgary Hitmen, a player got sick, so now they can't play. So now that they were supposed to play the Tigers, but the Tigers in Medicine Hat can't play because they were in close contact because that's who they played last weekend. The World Curling Championships are on pause now because someone in Calgary contacted COVID. Whether you believe it or not, it's a thing, and it's starting to wear on me that it's affecting people that I know, and it's affecting me. I can't go and umpire baseball games. I got into it again last year or 2 years ago in 2019. I always forget. We lost a complete year there. And now I can't do that. So now kids can't play baseball, and now there's athletes who are missing out on stuff. They aren't allowed to go and play sports. They aren't given opportunities to maybe get a scholarship, to maybe get drafted, to maybe be on a team. As dumb as that sounds, they can't be on a team. If you thought when we were kids 30, 40 years ago, and we couldn't be on a team because of something, we probably would have stopped doing what we're doing. But this entitlement that we have now, that we're owed something, it's wrong. And it's hard. It's really hard for me to watch this and sit back and not say, hey man, maybe it's time we should just sit back and maybe follow some rules. Like I said, I hope I don't lose listeners for my opinion, because it's just an opinion. But it's a thing. And I for us to be so selfish as a society right now, to not stay home and do what people are telling us, the experts are telling us, whether you believe it's a hoax or not, I don't care. It's time for us to take a step back and say, hey, there's people losing their livelihoods because I want to go to a bar. No one likes bars more than me. They don't. Kids can't play sports. I can't umpire games. I can't be at a field. I can't go to baseball games. I can't do this and I can't do that because of selfishness of human beings and our ignorance towards something. Whether you believe it or not, the people making the decisions they're telling us that we need to stop doing this. Whether it's a flu, whether it's not, I don't know. I really don't. I'm a pipe fitter. I'm a construction superintendent. So I'm not in a position to make these to make these decisions. But somebody is, and I hope that they're having the best interests of us involved in it. But we need to stop. We need to stop and take a look back and think about others, not just ourselves. We aren't that hard done by. Just because once a week you can't go to your local drink establishment, or you can't go to you can't go to something. We can't play softball right now. We don't know if we can play golf in the spring at the Fort McLeod Men's Golf League. We don't know right now. Cases are up. People are getting sick. We need to take a step back and maybe just maybe let's try something different. Let's try to actually follow the frickin' rules. And I didn't swear Saturday afternoon, so I caught myself before. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays, Dave and I get into it a little bit, so I start swearing a little bit more. But it's time to follow the frickin' rules and give this a shot. Because you know what? We've tried everything else so far in the last year, and it hasn't worked. Let's give it a shot, because it might work and it might get us out of this funk. You're not getting a frickin' microchip injected into you when you get your vaccine. You're not getting a tracking device injected into you. You have an iPhone, you have a Motorola flip phone. The tracking device is already there. You post things on Facebook, you post things on Twitter, you post things on Instagram where you're having dinner. You're already your own tracking device. Get the freaking vaccine. The quicker we can go around having fun, the quicker we can all start making money again, and the quicker we can start enjoying ourselves again. Whether it's fake or not, I don't know. But I do know what we've tried thus far hasn't worked. It hasn't. And I'm tired of it. I'm a little upset now because it's been a tough year. Lost my father beginning of this, and my mom hasn't been anywhere but Fanny's Fabrics, my house, and the post office in a year. Let's try something different, people, okay? Please try something different because we owe it to each other to be nicer to each other and quit arguing about stuff we know nothing about. Because I don't know anything about this. I do know that I can't do things that I like to do because there's of the selfishness of human beings. And that's what I think it is. Whether I lose listeners or not because of this, I hope I don't, but this is my opinion. I'm entitled to it. And I have a platform now where I can get my opinion out there. And people listen, whether they believe half the crap and whether you want to be entertained. I hope you're entertained most of the time. And I hope that I reach one person with my opinion on this. And I hate to do this on my podcast, but I think it's time. I think it's time somebody said something because we hear all this lollygagging around about, well, this and well, that, and the government's this and the government's that. You know what? No one's trying to hurt anybody. They're not. They're not trying to hurt anybody. But you know what? We need to try something different. Down in the States, it's a whole different ball game down there. They're going to ball games. They're going to basketball games. They're going to hockey games. Here in Canada, we're not. Why? Why? Because of our selfishness. That's my opinion. I'm entitled to it. Like I said, I hope I didn't upset anybody by saying this stuff on the 1420 podcast. It's usually a lot more lighthearted, and I try to be that way. But I think it's time. It's time for us to say something to each other because it's tough. It's tough, and I want us to get back to normal sooner rather than later because what we've been doing for the last year, it hasn't worked. Hey, it hasn't worked, and going government restrictions and going against the grain, and they put these bans. I don't know why. I don't know. They don't make any sense. Walmart, yes. This one, no. I don't know why. None of us do. But let's try something different and get through this because you know what? We're 6 weeks away. Think about this. We're 6 weeks away from getting to where we were Thursday. And that breaks my heart. We're 6 weeks away from the end of step 2, minimum. Let's try something, okay? Anyways, 1420 podcast. I probably pissed off half the listenership. I'll probably lose listens and everything else, but I just felt the need to say something. We got hats for sale. T-shirts are coming in. We got it all. Got sweatshirts for sale. It helps promote the show. We like getting them out there, and they look pretty good too. They're a nice looking hat that got designed, and the producer did a hell of a job with the designs of the T-shirts and everything else. So pick one up. Get a hold of me however you can. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, social media. Sorry for getting into that a little bit, but I just felt the need to say something. Like I said, I hope I didn't lose any listens, but I'm entitled to my opinion, and so are you. Hopefully when it's all done, we can sit back and laugh, and we'll have a discussion about what you guys think about it. If you guys want to get back to me what I just said, you're more than likely to instant message me on whatever platform you want to, because I'll gladly listen to any argument you want, and hopefully we can get through this. I'm sorry, everybody. I just had an opinion about it. As we get older, things seem to get better, obviously. I used to be a huge wrestling fan, as we've tried to talk about in the past about on the 1420 podcast. We get sidetracked about Buffalo Bills, of all things, trying to talk about wrestling. But I'm going to have somebody on later, not Dave, we get sidetracked about wrestling, but there's a follower of the show, Mike Tarness. I want to have him on soon to talk about some wrestling back in the day. But anyways, it's Wrestlemania weekend, and I remember being a kid when Wrestlemania 1 was on, and I was so jealous we couldn't watch it when WWF was first starting to get big, and we were just getting it on TV on Channel 7 in Fort McLeod. We always had Stampede Wrestling, but Wrestlemania, it was closed circuit TV, and couldn't get it in Fort McLeod, and it was a thing. But Wrestlemania weekend, when I was younger, it was fantastic, and I remember getting the videos later on from Brown's convenience store in Fort McLeod, renting them and playing them over and over again. But WrestleMania, it's their big weekend. It's the Super Bowl of wrestling. It's huge to this day. Different fan bases now. It's a lot different. I haven't watched wrestling in in quite some time. But the some WrestleMania moments that they'll never be broken. The Rock and Wrestling Connection, WrestleMania 1. The matches weren't great, the first WrestleMania, but you remember Mr. T being out there, and Wendy Richter and Cyndi Lauper and Liberace was on there, and the celebrities that were all a part of it. The first WrestleMania, Madison Square Garden, and Hogan and Hogan, Mr. T against Orndorff and Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton and the guys. But anyways, we'll get going here on my top 5. I haven't watched WrestleMania in quite some time, so it's like I said, things as they get older, they get better. So I don't have anything more recent for WrestleMania matches that come to mind. But I'll give you my top 5 because it's the weekend of the 1420 Sports Podcast. We do a top 5 every time I do one of these on the weekend, and hope you guys. I had some pretty good feedback yesterday on these, and I had some pretty good some things that matched up with my thought process on the top 5 matches in WrestleMania history. Number 5, I'm going to go with the Iron Man match. Went 60 minutes. I wasn't really a big fan of these matches back in the day. They seemed to drag on a little bit. A 1 hour, they call it a 1 hour Broadway in the business. Not that I'm in the wrestling business, but the 1 hour Broadway. Shawn Michaels, I think it was in San Antonio. They had this WrestleMania. Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. Bret Hart, I'm a huge fan of. He drinks his own Kool-Aid a little bit. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. I don't know if he's the best, but he ranks up there. He's really good. The old Stampede Wrestling days. I remember watching him as a kid. Anyways, that match was fantastic. Michaels won that one, 60 minutes. Rolled him up for the small package to win the whole thing. That's my number 5. Great match. Number 4, it was the passing of the torch from Hulk Hogan to the Ultimate Warrior. Hogan was on his way out, starting to wane a little bit. McMahon loved the Warrior. He wasn't a great worker, but he was a great on the mic. Not on the mics per se, but his physique and everything else was just so unbelievable, and the energy that he brought to arenas throughout North America. Hogan Warrior, I think it was at Skydome. Warrior won that one. Great, and it passed the torch. Hogan was on his way to WCW at that point, and so Hogan Warrior is number 4. Number 3 was another passing the torch per se. Hogan was a champion. I got Hogan Andre WrestleMania 3 as not a great match. Andre could barely move at that point in his career, but the build up to that match, the Pontiac Silverdome, 93,000 people. Started on the Body Shop, I believe, or Piper's Pit, or it was Piper's Pit, where Bobby the Brain Heenan was behind the whole thing, and the script was written that Andre was jealous of Hogan and what Hogan was doing, and they were buddies and everything else, and Hogan ended up challenging Andre. They signed the contract, blah blah, wrestling, all the BS that follows behind it, but the Hogan Andre match wasn't great because, like I said, Andre could barely move, had back problems, the size of him. He's a huge man. We've all seen it a million times. Hogan ends up slamming him, does the shaking of the finger. Hogan slams him, does the leg drop, pins Andre 1, 2, 3, and then the rest is history. Might have been one of Andre's very last matches, but that's my number 3 for the WrestleMania matches. Number 2, a ladder match in WrestleMania 10, I think it was. Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, the beating these guys took, and the falls that they would off that ladder and onto the top of the rope, and the sheer brutality of it all. I know these guys aren't, wrestling's not a sport. It's sports entertainment, but these boys are athletes, not boys. These men are athletes, and the stuff that they can do, the flipping and flopping and the dives, and it's an art form for sure. And yeah, they're acting, and yeah, the outcomes are predetermined. But that match in itself, the violence that ensued that night, and the way they would fall down and take beatings and take and just the sheer brutality of that match, I'm giving that number 2 in my books. That ladder match was one for the ages, and it was fantastic. Number 1, I was fortunate enough. Number 1 and number 3 both on the same card, WrestleMania 3. I was fortunate enough to go with the Platts family to the Saddle Dome in Calgary to watch this. We had front row seats, closed circuit TV on the big screen, and Steamboat, Savage. That match, the high flying, it was a 19 or 20-minute match, and it just the high flying and the acrobatics that those two guys had. The athletes, they weren't the biggest dudes like wrestling had back then, but they were so phenomenal. The way that they would the drop kicks and the off the top rope stuff and the inside and outside the ring, and the story that they told throughout the match, and the way the story began back, I think it was 6 or 7 months prior to, where Steamboat hit or Savage hit Steamboat with the bell across and crushed his larynx and everything else, and the way it all just the build up to the match and the match itself, the story that those guys told on that day was phenomenal. Steamboat ended up getting the Intercontinental title back. Miss Elizabeth in Savage's corner. Savage is one of the best wrestlers of all time, in my opinion. And Steamboat, he got a rough deal when he left WWF and went to WCW. Didn't get the push he deserved or wanted, I guess. But to me, that's the best WrestleMania match of all time. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed today's show. I got a little bit more political than I wanted to than we normally want to, but like I said, I felt I had to say something. I have a platform to do it. Hopefully don't piss too many people off. Hope you guys come back and listen if you don't agree with me. If you don't agree with me, let me know. If you agree with me, let me know, because we appreciate the feedback. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and all the rest, Amazon Music, as I said earlier on. Saturday afternoon, hey, if you can get a chance to get the vaccine, get it. Stay home, stay safe, because we want to get out there and have a good time again, and maybe be able to have some beers together and get one of these shows out to the public and do one out at Stronghold Brewery in Fort McLeod like we talked about, or get a pubcast somewhere and get the friends together. I haven't seen some of my friends since October, and it's starting to get a little bit tough. But anyways, there's my crybaby for the week. But hope you guys enjoyed the show. Get back to me when you can on the Facebook account, Twitter account, and everything else, because we like the feedback. Buy a hat, buy a t-shirt, and all the rest. Anyways, take care of yourself, but more importantly, or take care of each other, but more importantly, take care of yourself. You need you around. Keep your stick on the ice and don't swing at the high ones. Listen to the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening so far, and we'll talk to you again on Tuesday.